Welcome to the Green Goddess Podcast, where we explore sacred medicines and the evolution of consciousness. I'm your host, Tara. Today, our guest is Arin Fugate. Arin is a friend of mine, and she has been working with plant spirits for a long time, and she's on the show today to talk with us about how she accesses plant spirits through essential oils. Arin works with doTERRA, a company that sells essential oils and harvests them in a sustainable way. And she's a leader in the organization as a wellness advocate. Welcome to the show, Arin.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about how you got started working with plant spirit medicine using essential oils.
Well, it was one of those situations in life where I think the plants found me. I certainly wasn't planning on following this path. I was actually living in Los Angeles, California, trying to make it in the production industry. And I really wanted to make films because I thought that would be a great way to uplift humanity. But I got pretty wrapped up in all the stress and the hustle and bustle of the Los Angeles lifestyle. And I found myself pretty sick, struggling financially, not really knowing what to do with my life. And I was in a yoga class, and during Shavasana, so the end of yoga, the corpse pose, a premonition came to me, and it was a voice that said, "You have to teach." And I thought, I don't know what I'm going to teach. Like, what are you talking about? My life is a mess. I thought it was way off track. And it just repeated that phrase, "You have to teach." And I started to think, well, maybe I'll, go to acupuncture school, or I'll become a yoga teacher. I just started to daydream about what that meant. And it was literally a week later that someone introduced me to doTERRA essential oils. And I took a sniff of this blend called Whisper. It had rose and jasmine and patchouli and vetiver and bergamot, this beautiful blend of oils. And I took a sniff of that, and it was like every cell of my body, I'm getting chills as I tell you the story right now. Every cell of my body went, whatever this is, I have to be a part of it. And that was the beginning of quite a love affair with plants and plant medicine and plant spirit. And I just started following that knowing. I just said yes to everything that the plant spirits asked me to do. And now it's 10 years later. And wow, I have a lot of stories, that's for sure.
Yeah. So tell us one.
Well, I think one of my favorite moments was I was living in Maui, and I was sitting on a cliff overlooking the ocean. And if you've ever done that, you know how amazing and serene that is. Just enjoying the waves and the salt air. And I kind of started meditating. And my question was just, what am I here to do? What's my purpose? What's my next step? And I started getting a download from the best thing, entity or person or spirit that I could think of, is it was Gaia. It was like I was getting a download from Mother Earth, like the greater goddess Mother Earth. And she started to command me to be a spokesperson for the plants. I often call myself an ambassador of the plants.
Yes.
And she just said, I need you to teach people how to use the gifts of the earth that I've provided. And through that, that's going to heal the planet. And it was in that moment that I actually came up with my first business name, which was Guided by Gaia.
Oh, Guided by Gaia. I love it.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was my dog barking in the background.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Guided by Gaia. So what I'm really curious about is how you actually work with the essential oils to connect with the plant spirits. So for me, my entryway into plant spirit meditation and connection with the plant spirits was through meditating with tinctures. And now It's more through working with medicines such as hape, which is a sacred tobacco snuff from the Amazon, and with sananga, which are eye drops with the sananga plant. So I'm working with them really differently. I'm sitting and meditating after taking them into my body for the most part. And for me, I love essential oils, but I tend to use them more because I like how they smell and to kind of come
Mm.
into the present and enjoy sort of a sense-focused experience. So I'm curious, how do you work with them?
Sure. Well, what I've been told through meditation, but also through research and reading ancient texts, is that essential oils are the essence. That's why they're called, the essential oil. And for a long time, people could not figure out how to distill this essence. So, in the times of Egypt and Mesopotamia, there were crude distillation processes. It was often in fat and sometimes animal fat that they would use to extract the aroma. But it was this highly sought after magic to get the essence of that plant. And when someone finally figured out how to invent a distiller and to get that beautiful extract, they were magic. So it was kings and queens and priestesses and the high echelon that had access to essential oils. If a medicine woman or a witch or that the person who worked with more of the peasants, if they had essential oils, it was under lock and key. So imagine them to be just these very, very magical, sacred essences that were so hard to come by. The other thing that came to me was if you break down the word anoint, so in the Bible and other spiritual texts, you'll hear of anointing with oil. There's actually 1,800 references in the Bible to using oil to anoint. One of the most well known would be the holy anointing oil. It was a special mixture of cassia, cinnamon, sandalwood, frankincense, and this other element that we think is actually marijuana. And so
Yeah,
this
cannabis.
yeah, so there's this
Yeah.
holy anointing oil, and the recipe was given from God to Moses, and God said, "Bring this to my people, and when they anoint themselves, they will stay close to me." So that and what anoint means is to make holy. So
Mm.
that thought started running through my body, and I realized that when I anointed myself with the oils, which could be placing a drop on my third eye or my crown, it could be ingesting the essential oil, it could be diffusing the oil in my atmosphere. But when I used them with that understanding that they would make me holy, then I started to have more communication from the plant spirits and the plant kingdom to understand this further. I really like to think of them as cellular activators because, on a scientific level, one of the things all essential oils do is they go into our cells and they clean off our receptor sites. They encourage programmed cellular death if the cell is unhealthy, and they protect the healthy cells so that they can proliferate as more and more vitality. So, in a way, essential oils reprogram our DNA. And so then I
Wow.
started to just geek out on all of that. And when I meditated with it, it was like, oh, yeah, absolutely. They're little, not little, but concentrated plant spirits in this aromatic experience. And they're very volatile. So when you open a bottle of essential oil, it vaporizes into the air. So they almost are like spirit. The spirit of the plants is the way I like to think of them.
That's beautiful. Wow, I love all that information. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like, who are your plant spirit allies right now, and what are they teaching you?
Right now, I have to really think about that. I can't go a day without neroli at the moment. And neroli is the blossom from the orange tree. The neroli that we have with doTERRA is sourced from Egypt. And I have a lot of connections, past life experiences of being in Egypt. So
Hmm.
when I use neroli, I'm instantly transported there. And there's a lot of essential oil wisdom from Egypt as well. So just by using that plant, I feel like I'm bringing myself from that lifetime into this lifetime. And I just love the aroma.
Wow, that's fascinating. So what kind of gifts do you feel like you're bringing in?
I feel like there is wisdom from those times, the times that we spent in Egypt. I feel like there's a lot of connection to Egyptian life that also has connection to celestial beings.
Yes.
And I believe very strongly that there's a heavy influence of celestial energy on the planet right now, working to uplift us and help us
Hmm.
move into Christ consciousness. And neroli
Yes.
is new. We haven't had neroli. So one thing doTERRA does is they only source oils that can be grown sustainably, free of pesticides, free of fertilizers. So sometimes it takes a while for the company to find a good source. And so we've wanted neroli for years and years and years and only got it about 2 years ago. And it was so magical when we got it because I had just given birth to my baby. And neroli is one of the best oils for postpartum. And it was literally delivered to my doorstep just days after I'd given birth.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. And this might be a little bit of a segue, but would you be interested in sharing the magical story of her birth?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Because I remember when you told me that, and I was like blown away by what happened.
Yeah. Well, we birthed her at home, and that was always our intention. But we got a little scared because I was late. And there's laws, unfortunately, in the state of Oregon that says at 42 weeks, you have to sign paperwork that basically says you know that you're at risk of death or infant death. And then at 43 weeks, your midwife cannot service you anymore. You have to go to a hospital. So we gave birth to her on Friday. If I had not given birth by Sunday, I would have hit that 43-week point.
Hmm.
So there was a lot of practice in trusting and surrendering to my body and knowing that my body and my baby knew what to do. And we used oils to help move us into labor. We also used acupuncture and homeopathics.
What
And
oils did you use? Sorry to interrupt you.
yeah, no, that's fine. Rose and jasmine rubbed on the ankles can help to
Mm.
induce labor if you're ready. It won't induce it if you're not ready. Also, clary sage can help with that. So I just started anointing my ankles with rose, jasmine, and clary sage. And I got acupuncture treatments, and I was walking a lot and drinking teas and taking homeopathics. And we finally started feeling the rumblings of labor. And there's two very incredible points in my labor. One was I was going through the contractions and trying to open my cervix. And then there was a moment where I said I wanted to get in the tub of water. And when I got into the tub, I felt absolute ecstasy. My midwife guided me through a meditation where she had me open my mouth and stick out my tongue like a lion's pose. And she just guided me through the surges and the opening. And I had this moment in my mind that said, whatever I'm going through right now is what I need to go through to become the mother of my daughter.
Mm.
And then everything changed, and I switched into active labor, which was 4 hours of pushing. It was the hardest physical thing I've ever done in my life. And the baby was not descending. And we tried a million different positions, pushed for 4 hours until my midwife said, we're going to have to lay you on your back on your bed, which was never the position I wanted to give birth in. I thought I'd give birth in a beautiful squatting position or on all fours, like you see, tribal women do. But I was on my back with my legs up, like you would imagine in a hospital birth, trying to push my baby out. And I could feel her crowning. So if I reached down, I could actually feel her head, but she still wasn't fully descending. And so my midwife, and I loved it. The midwives were like medicine women. They were giving me tinctures, all these different herbs to make my contractions stronger. I just had so many visions of many, many lifetimes of being in like a hut and being serviced by medicine women. And I loved it. I was in such joy. And then my midwife said, okay, this baby has to come out now. So I need you to do whatever it is you need to do on this next contraction to push her out. If you need to pray, if you need to ask for help, do whatever you need to do. And it was in that moment that I went, oh my gosh, the goddess. I had forgotten to ask the goddess to be present at my birth. And I just
Oh, wow.
asked her to come into my body and help me get this baby out. And it was on that contraction and that push that she finally came out.
Wow.
It was so powerful to really feel and know that presence and that energy. And also to realize that these spirits will come into your life, but you have to invite them.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. That's something I've been really exploring more lately myself, how we can make space for the plant spirits, how we can receive, and not just the plants, like you said, the goddess, right? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. So I've been exploring what that looks like, and it certainly feels like it's very connected to how much spaciousness I'm creating in my being and
Absolutely.
in the way that I live my life and the way I schedule things, create lots and lots of spaciousness. And I find too that my diet is very, very important. It's it's extremely connected because, as physical beings, we have a lot of density within us. And what we eat changes our vibrational state and can cause harmony or disharmony in the body. So, a clear, clean flow of energy through the body is so important. So, for me, I'm on a very strict diet all the time. I put myself on because I am working with the spirits and I want to have strong communication with them. So, for myself, there's never any sugar, even to the point where I don't eat fruit. So, I'm curious, what are some of the things that you do in order to have a strong connection?
I love that you mentioned that because I've noticed over the years, especially when big downloads are coming, I'll have a sudden and drastic diet change as well. So at the time of my life when I was getting the most of these downloads from the plant spirits, I actually was vegan and sugar free. Currently, I am on a paleo diet, but I
Yes.
think it's really important for the sugar free, gluten free, dairy free, no processed foods, um, handmade as much as possible, grown as much as possible. And any meat that I do consume has to be like, I have to know the animal or the farmer. So getting really in touch with that flow of where our food comes from is extremely important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also am doing the paleo and I'm doing the ketogenic paleo as well. And I'm finding that's extremely important. I've learned through my own experience that anything that feeds candida, the natural yeasts that live within our microbiome in our gut can block spiritual communication. It's amazing.
That's so interesting that you say that because when I first came into working with essential oils, I was struggling with candida big time. And it was actually during a candida cleanse that I started getting the most communication. So I love that you just
Yes.
brought that to my attention.
Yes, I've absolutely experienced that. And in fact, I had a experience not too long ago. It was in the fall when I wasn't feeling connected, and like I would sit and meditate, and I just couldn't quite find my GPS. And
Mm.
I felt like something was wrong, but I didn't know what it was. And I had this dream, this amazing dream. And I love that our guides speak to us in the dreams. It's so fun to interpret them. And it was a very clear message. I was on a hiking trail and was like in the woods in the Pacific Northwest where I live, and it was very damp and wet as it is, and there were mushrooms blocking my path, like literally. There were just giant mushrooms in the way. It was like, okay, and they were growing out my ears too. So it was like very clear they were blocking my ability to hear and blocking my way. Yeah. And yeah, so then I said, oh, okay, I guess I need to take some herbs for candida and tighten up my diet even more. And that's when I went, fully into the ketogenic. And it's been wonderful ever since. It's been much more clear. And I noticed too that there's a tendency when eating foods that do feed candida. For me, I'm so sensitive, even any kind of real carb. It can bring down my emotional state into negative and lower vibrations. And it's really interesting because there definitely are beings that feed off of uh, our pain and our negativity, and they want humanity to be in a lower vibrational state because they're literally feeding off of it. Because, thinking about it, a lot of us, if we're feeling down, like we want to turn to some kind of comfort food, and that feeds the bacteria or the yeast in this case. So it's really interesting how they're literally kind of feeding off of when we're in low vibe states. And then, of course, there's the energetic aspect as well.
Yes, and I've seen these beans. So
Really?
yes, and it was very powerful and transformational for me because I spent a lot of time going to music festivals and going to Burning Man, and I actually used a lot of recreational drugs, not in a spiritual way. And I stopped doing that. I stopped using drugs and I stopped partying the way that I had in my 20s. But I went to this music festival and it was a beautiful festival. The music was amazing. We were camping. But I had this experience one night where I was walking around completely sober and I started seeing different groups of people and the entities that were feeding off of them. And there was different entities dependent upon what the person's pain was. And I just walked around the whole festival and watched this and took it in and was in awe and blown away that there was this whole realm of entities that were basically feeding off of whatever that individual was trying to get away from. And then when people flocked together in their shared pain, I especially saw it if I saw like a group of people hanging out, like passing around a cigarette or something. And it was like this core group sharing their pain. And then there's these entities over them encouraging that and sucking their energy off of them. And it was in that moment I went, oh my gosh, like there's this whole other realm going on. And what we do, it's no judgment over what we choose to do and ingest in our body. Like there are times in my life when I eat a chocolate chip cookie or I have a glass of wine, and it's not about judgment, but it's about knowing exactly what you're saying, that if you choose to numb out the pain through a substance, that there is possibly an opening that you're giving way to for these lower vibration entities to come in and drain your life force. And I can feel it. I absolutely, if I'm in my flow where I'm eating high vibe food and I'm using my oils and I'm dealing with my emotions consciously, it's almost like nothing can touch me. If I go and I use a substance, like sugar is a common one for me. If I use the substance to soothe the emotion, then all of a sudden I'm depressed.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, I had to, this is still something I'm sad about, but I had to I had to give up chocolate to say I'm never touching it again. And it's so sad to me. I like not even chocolate flavoring. I can't do it. Yeah, it drops my vibe so quickly and puts me into a victim mindset, and it's just not worth it. It's not worth it when you become so highly sensitive and you become aware of how good you feel when you take really excellent care of your vessel. Then you just realizing, it's not worth it. It's not worth going down in your vibration and starting to get caught in illusions and attachments. And then the way we interact with others is not so great. And life becomes more confusing. So yeah, I think keeping our vessels clear is so important. And, everyone has their own unique ecosystem within their body. So I'm not suggesting that my way of taking care of myself should be everybody's, but it certainly is really important, and it's made a tremendous impact. As well, I find, as far as being available to the spirits, that grounding myself every day through exercise is very, very important, and spending a lot of time in meditation with the intention of dwelling on peace and the good feelings that arise is also really important, because, like, as you just shared, when we spend time dwelling on the negativity, it feeds the negativity. That's not to say that we shouldn't be in touch with it when it does arise, because that would be, if we weren't, that would be, bypassing it and resisting it, and it would still be there untransformed. But yeah, it's true. It's so important to grow the light. It's so important to grow the light and to put intention and action into growing the light. And when the negativity does arise, it's what I'm finding, what the spirits are teaching me is it's just a matter of honoring that energy with love, not trying to change it, accepting it and holding it in love. And then it relaxes and it dissipates.
Yeah.
And it's been really interesting. I've been experiencing quite a lot of learning around the negative entities as well, in that I've been experiencing like some spiritual warfare. It's very weird, but for example, I've been really elevating and going to next levels in my journey and my consciousness and my work with the helping spirits, the plants. And it's just been so interesting. I had a dream where some being, like, it was kind of like in a trench coat, like a very funny, like dark being, like in a trench coat, like snuck this device onto my arm. And this device was a metal shaped, like a rabbit. And he stuck it into my arm. And like, it was like a moment when I like wasn't fully present or something. And I think that I had this dream because I think my guides were showing me what had happened. And when I woke up, I thought about it and I quickly understood what that meant. So the rabbit emphasized fear because they are prey and they live a lot of their lives freaked out, running. And the metal indicated the mental element, the rigid mental element. So what they were showing me was that somebody had snuck a program into my system of fear, and it was running in my mind. And that was absolutely the truth. At that time, I was experiencing anxiety. It was very confusing for me because I had gotten to a really good place, and then all of a sudden I was down, and really stuck in these illusions. And it was really interesting. Just having that awareness was enough to help me release it. Um, Having that detachment, understanding it wasn't mine. Sometimes it isn't even yours. Sometimes these experiences like aren't even our own. And so I've been exploring, how can I become impervious to these little sneak attacks? And it's really all about growing the light and calling on our spirits to help and protect us. And the stronger our connection is with our helping spirits, the more protected we are. And in particular, I love working with tobacco for protection, but all of them really. And as well, they can have entry points. The negative ones can have entry points whenever we really entertain negative thinking, victimy thinking, hopelessness, whenever we entertain those kinds of thoughts, or when we judge ourselves or others. Because when we judge, we're saying, okay, this isn't as it should be. It's not perfect. It's not in divine order. Or we're saying, that something is not worthy of love. And so these darker beings can kind of hop in that space. I had a dream just the other night where they tried to get at me again, where it was actually funny because I could see how much more strong I have been in my light because of this dream, because it wasn't impactful. But they were trying to tell me that I was all alone and that I didn't have any help. And they were trying to plant that one in me. I was like, okay, that's not true.
Yeah, because the battle between dark and light is real. It's not just the stuff of movies. As our light gets bigger, the darkness wants to take it down. And you have to be very conscious about it. I have 3 oils that I use almost on a daily basis to protect me against negative energy, negative entities, and even so far as like full attachments. Would you like to know what they are?
Absolutely.
So whenever I go out to a shopping mall or an airport or any environment where I'm going to be around a lot of people and I'm not, so I live in Southern Oregon. I have 5 acres. You've been to my house. I'm very protected. I work from home. So when I go out, it's like, okay, I got to put my armor on. And so I apply melaleuca or tea tree oil to my wrists, the inside of my wrists, and over my solar plexus, so your abdomen. And then I also apply pettigrain over my abdomen. And both of those will prevent negative energies and negative beings and attachments from taking hold. If I do feel like I've picked something up, I put oregano on the top of my head. And that is the most powerful oil to sever any kind of connection or energy or attachment that does not belong to me.
Oregano.
Oregano, yes.
Fascinating. I'm so happy you shared that. Thank you.
Yeah, they're very helpful. My husband and I were funny because if we have to go to the mall, for example, or Costco, that's the worst. That's the worst one I have to go to. We're like, okay, we got to put our oils on before we get in there. And we can feel a difference. If we don't apply our oils, we are low energy. We are very empathic. We've picked up a lot of things and we just feel very sluggish. And if we put our oils on, it's like we're ready and it just bounces off of us. So they're great tools for that.
I love that. Yeah, I want to share too that something cannabis brought through for me recently. I was meditating with cannabis and it was like amazing. And the plants were speaking to me and they were saying to me, the ultimate protection is the vibration of love. If you're in the vibration of love, you're safe and you don't really need to worry. It's pretty amazing because in unconditional love in particular, because it's easy to love some things, but we need to love all. So allowing that energy to flow to all is the greatest protection and the greatest safety. Because it is about the law of attraction, the oneness piece, right? So we're not going to experience those negative energies coming at us if we're in a high vibrational state. It's when we go through our natural humanness, or we are not keeping ourselves clear that we end up experiencing that attraction of the negative, the entry point of the negative. So I thought that was
And
really
that's why meditation is so important, like daily cleansing, and also this idea of anointing yourself every day, whether you're anointing yourself with a plant spirit that you're in connection with, you're anointing yourself with the food that you eat, what you drink, what's in your environment, or you use an oil and you actually anoint yourself. That idea of I make myself holy and sacred. And what my belief is and what has been downloaded to me is just by being on this planet. So in a sense, we're God's incarnate. But when we come into this planet, the density is like a cloak. And we have to every day remind ourselves that we're God.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're all one being. We're all God. We're all God. We're all goddess, however we want to look at it. We're all source, right? Experiencing itself in these apparently separate bodies. Yeah,
Apparently.
I love that. And the way that we use our power is our intention and the way that we direct our attention. So as we are directing our attention on positivity and love and good things and bringing that energy to anything that doesn't feel so good as well, we're using our power to create a better world. And I'm so interested in how the plants can help us create a better world. That's something I'm just so passionate about. My work with the plants has taught me that they are infinitely benevolent beings that are incredibly merciful, completely forgiving. They unconditionally forgive. They don't hold grudges. That's a very human concept. They don't judge. They're very, very, very loving. And they're really here to help us to step into our goddess consciousness and to create a much happier realm.
Yes, and they're dedicated to it and passionate to it. Whenever I've communicated with the plant spirits, it is the most important thing to them that humans understand that they are loved and they are sacred beings, that the plants are actually here for us. There's this relationship between humans, plants, and animals that was meant to be symbiotic. And
Yes.
they're just begging for us to recognize that.
Yes. And they're such amazing teachers. They're so wise. Like when I was sitting with cannabis recently, as I mentioned, I was getting as well this like really strong sense of like how vulnerable we are as humans, you know, and how little we understand about reality and our place in it. And the plants are really here to fill in those blanks and to support us and to help us. They really are our elders.
And that brings me to psychedelics. And
Yeah.
my understanding of why we have psychedelics is so we can be reminded of the other realms and the other truths that are going on, and that they were put here on the planet too for humans to just touch into that. And of course, in my journey, I've experienced a lot of psychedelic experiences, and then I got to a point where I didn't have to use the psychedelics anymore to get there.
So what
And I
medicines were you working with?
um mushrooms and uh acid was actually a really big transformation for me, and then the ultimate transformation was DMT. It was when I experienced DMT, I got the biggest download of my whole life, and I never touched another psychedelic or drug until one experience where I thought I could take some psilocybin, and the plants got so mad at me. They were like, no, you are not supposed to be doing this. You do not need us to reach what you are destined to reach. And it was no judgment on like all of humanity. It was very specific to me. They said, this is not your path.
Mm-hmm.
This is your path, meaning with the meditations through the oils. And so
Right.
ever since I had that DMT experience, it was always shown to me that I have direct access to those realms without using the more, like on a scale of 1 to 10, psychedelics are a 10, where, taking a tincture or an herb or an oil is a 2 or a 3. So we have this scale of the type of plant and the type of use to open us up. But the idea is that once you've been opened up, you can get there with breath, or you can get there with intention, or you can sit under a tree and commune with that plant spirit and see beyond the veil.
Right. Right. I love that. I think there's a place for all of it. You know, I think it's amazing to be able to be so connected and to be able to go to those places without any medicines. I think that is amazing. But I just so love working with the medicines. I think it's such a beautiful, sacred experience. So
Yeah, it is
I see value
amazing
in
that
all.
they're here for us. It's mind-blowing
It
to
is.
me.
It is. And, you know, I feel that they are evolving our consciousness. They are evolving human consciousness through each one of us that they enter into. If we enter into the relationship with respect, that is, and kindness and real receptivity, they they go really deeply into our subconscious, into our bodies, into our cells, into our DNA, and they evolve us. It's almost like this would be a funny way to put it because it's not um condescending, but it's almost like we're their pets, you know, in an interesting
Mm-hmm.
way. Like they take care of us and they nurture us and they can transform us.
They can. Well, it just simply when you look at what happens if you start to eat a plant-based diet. Recently, my husband and I started looking at the food on our plate, and we said we want all of our carbs to come from vegetables, and we want the ratio carbs to protein to be 3 times more vegetable-based carbs than protein. And it's a lot of vegetables. If you look at the plate, it's more than half of the plate is vegetables, and then you have a little tiny bit of protein and hardly any fat. And we started eating this way, and we watched our bodies and our mind transform. And what is amazing to me about that is it's because we are ingesting plants. this is what happens when you start to take plants into your body. And you can take plants into your body through food. You can take plants into your body through tinctures, through herbs, through smoke, through diffusing, just the aromatics, through bathing, through laying in the grass and communing. But when we take plants into our body, our cells respond in a positive way. And that's why you'll see people healed from cancer just by moving to a plant-based diet.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And that's interesting. I like that you use the term plant-based diet. That's a phrase that came in when I was sitting with Hoppe earlier in the year. That phrase popped in, plant-based diet. And it doesn't necessarily mean vegan. It
Right.
means, just as you said, based on plants.
Well, here's, the next component is most of our Western meat and dairy, they're fed only corn. And so if you've ever read the book, The Omnivore's Dilemma, it's an incredible book, but he tested a McDonald's meal through a mass spectrometry test and discovered on an atomic level, French fries, milkshake, chicken nuggets, all that is almost 100% corn. So if you look at the other side of that, say you do choose to eat some farm-raised, organic, beautiful lamb, and that lamb has eaten organic, beautiful grass its whole life, that is still a plant-based diet versus a cow that ate GMO corn. And that's where my mind starts to go with it, because it's so much more than just I only eat vegetables, or I only eat fruit, or I don't eat dairy, or don't eat meat, or even I don't eat sugar. And you've experienced, so have I, that fruit can still bring that sugar response in your body, but it's being aware, like, where is our food coming from? How is it treated? What is it eating? And I think that's another aspect of how we could completely change the planet if we all just became more aware of where our food is coming from and how connected to plants and clean water and fresh air and beautiful sunshine is it.
We're going in that direction.
Yes, we are.
It's already happening, and I see it. And that's another teaching I want to share that came through from cannabis is relentless optimism. That's part of how we create. That's how to, because what we expect, what we invest our emotional energy into or beliefs, we create. So not only are we safest when we're in the vibration of unconditional love towards ourselves and all others, because of course it's all one. But we can hold ourselves in this space of incredible gratitude and relentless optimism. And that's how we align. It's not that we have to make things happen, but that's how we align with the best possible world. We invest in it. We give our power to it. Yeah. And it's like what we give our power to is so important because, like you said, right? Like we're goddesses, we're gods, right? So what are we creating? And who do we empower? What do we empower with our attention and our intention? Yeah. Yes. So, okay, just a couple other things I would love to cover with you. So, one thing is I wonder if, since we've been talking about essential oils, you might share maybe just a few more that you like to work with that might be of interest to our listeners, and just a little bit about what they do.
Sure.
I know
What if
there's
I
like
took you
so many.
through kind of a daily routine that I like to use?
Great.
So when I wake up in the morning, my first desire with the oils is to use something that grounds me. So that means I'm going to reach to a tree oil, maybe Douglas fir, Siberian fir, frankincense, one of those tree oils. We have a blend in doTERRA called Balance, and that is one that I'll often use. And I apply it to the bottom of my feet. And the visualization I just have is I've been asleep, I've been in the dream world, I travel a lot, leave my body during my dream state. And so I'm applying these trees to the bottom of my feet. And not only are the trees giving me roots into the ground, but trees also open my airways so that I can take in more life. And the way that I work with oils is I ask them. So I have my oils all set out on an altar. and I go to my oil box and I ask who wants to be with me today. And different ones will light up and call to me. So sometimes I'll just hear that bergamot and clary sage and lavender want to play with me today. So I'll apply them. I love putting oils over my belly, even sometimes in my belly button. That's a great access point in Chinese medicine to all the meridians. I also love putting oils on the back of my neck over the gate of jade. This is a chakra point where our soul comes in and out of our body, especially if we do astral projection or out of body traveling. Then daily, I like to ingest some citrus oils because citrus oils are the best at cleaning out the cells. So I'll just put a couple of drops of something like lemon or tangerine or orange in my water, and I drink that down. Recently, I've been very attracted to turmeric essential oil, and I'll put 2 drops under my tongue in the morning. Turmeric essential oil is very special, and you can't actually get everything from turmeric in the powder form. You need it with the essential oil. So people who like turmeric lattes or they like to juice turmeric, it's really wise to also take some turmeric oil with that because there's extra chemical components that you can only get in the oil. Then I love using essential oils as a part of my skincare routine. I always think of Cleopatra and the ways that she used plants and herbs and salves as her skincare routine. So I love to apply rose and jasmine on my face and all over my body with coconut oil, and it just makes me feel like royalty. Then, of course, I have my oils I told you about where if I need some protection because of what's going on in the day. But the other thing I love doing is diffusing essential oils in my home environment because for me, I actually just got this communication from the plant kingdom the other day. If you think about ingesting herbs, right, how good it is to drink tea or take a tincture and you're getting all those herbs in your body. Within the herbs, you have the essential oils as well, and they're components of the herbs that are very important. So if you're drinking, and one of my favorite herbalists, Susan Weed, she always says, drink your herbal infusions throughout the day. So if you're drinking your herbal infusions throughout the day and you're diffusing essential oils in the air, not only are you getting those herbal components in your body, but you're getting them in through your respiratory system as well. And it's kind of like bringing nature inside. So I love this for people who live in the city or they don't get the opportunity to go outside because you can make a forest in your home. One of the reasons we love to walk through a forest is the essential oils that are being diffused from the pine needles. So you can bring that into your home. And that's something I do every day. I go around and turn on all my diffusers. And then at night, I love to take a bath with essential oils. So I pick out, again, I just ask the oils, who wants to play with me? I get a jar of Epsom salts and put 3 or 4 drops of oils in there and then take my bath. One of my favorite combos is frankincense, lavender, and then something like ylang ylang.
Thank you for sharing that. Wow. Yeah, you work really deeply with the oils.
Yes.
That's awesome. I love it. And you're made of plants at this point.
Yes, for sure.
So do you find that when you apply one oil, you'll feel a particular vibrational state from it? How do you experience
Definitely.
the oil? Yeah?
Yes, definitely. So when I apply an essential oil, it feels like the spirit of that oil is merging with me and going through every cell of my body. And the way that it's been communicated to me, like I've asked the oils what the plant kingdom is like, and they explain that it's this web and they're actually all connected. So even though there's a separate spirit for ylang ylang versus frankincense versus myrrh, they're also all the same spirit. So say I put ylang ylang on and I anoint myself with ylang ylang, then ylang ylang goes into my body, into my cells, reprograms my cells, gives all the information that is needed, and then connects me to the greater web of all the plant spirits.
Yeah, the cosmic web. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I love that. So we just have a little bit more time. I've just so enjoyed this conversation. Um, I want to ask you a little bit about leadership. So, something I really admire about you, watching you, knowing you, and I watch you through social media because we don't live in the same place anymore. But
Hmm.
I just love the way that you are as a leader. And I wonder if you could share a little bit about your philosophy around leadership.
Thank you for that. I never thought I would be a leader, so it's been quite a growing experience for me. And one thing that I've always held on to is I truly, truly believe that I believe in destiny. I believe that there is a divine path and that there are energies and a light greater than us guiding us. And so through my experience in leadership, I found a lot of peace in that. I never have to force anything, I just have to allow. So it
Yes.
doesn't mean that I sit back and I'm complacent. I'm very active in the active leadership, but I also notice the natural flow. If something isn't working, if I'm trying to force something to happen, or I'm trying to force someone to be something or do something, I'll notice that and realize that that's my ego. And all I have to do is get quiet and pray and become a vessel for divine guidance. And when I'm in a conflict, my solution is to pray to each other's higher selves. So, say I have some kind of conflict with a person or a group of people, instead of going at it head on and trying to figure it out, I'll stop and I will touch into who I am as that divine goddess and who they are as that divine goddess. And I will ask those higher beings who get the bigger picture to help us work out the conflict. And that helps because then there's space and I'm not fighting. One of my big philosophies too is instead of the goal being to win in a situation, my goal is understanding
Mm,
and awakening.
I love it. I love it. This is so wonderful. Thank you for sharing this. Yes. And another thing I've noticed about you is that you're very generous with people and you're very understanding and you're always looking to help others. I see that you're very, very service focused. You're always looking at how can you use your power or your resources to make the world a better place or to make somebody's life easier.
Yeah. Well, that is pretty much my mission and the thing that gets me going in the morning.
Yes. Yes.
I I love people. I love uplifting people. I love watching people blossom. And it's kind of I treat people the way a gardener treats their flower bed. And it's an analogy I use often in mentorship when I'm trying to help someone kind of see how their life is going or see how their project is going. I I remind them, if you are a gardener, right? You work the soil, you have compost, which we could also consider crap, and
Huh.
there's all this tumultuous things that happen, and the soil has to be dug up in order for something to grow. So if you're having a breakdown in your life, if it feels like a breakdown, that could actually just be the tilling of your soil. It could just be the composting of your future garden. And then you plant seeds, but not all seeds sprout. And we don't get mad at the seeds that don't sprout, right? So this is the same if you're building a business or you're launching a project or you're writing a book or you're starting a new relationship. You're planting a seed, but if that seed doesn't sprout, you didn't do anything wrong. The seed didn't do anything wrong. That's just how nature is. And so you plant more seeds and you water those seeds and you tend those seeds. And then some of those seeds will sprout, but some of them will die before they give fruit, or some of them will be overtaken by weeds. And you have to tend them Every day you have to go out to your garden and talk to them and water them and weed them and tend them. And then out of the 100 seeds that you planted, you'll have a harvest and you'll have a bounty. But it doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen without some death and destruction and upheaval as well.
Yes. Wow. I love it. I love it. And you're so right. I love that you're talking about the usefulness of the difficulty and um, the essentialness of it too, of how it's part of the process. It's the lotus flowering in the muck, right? Yeah, so thank you so much for being on the show. We really enjoy it, and may the plants be with you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to listening to more of your episodes.